Hello health champions! Today we're going to talk about the ultimate slow metabolism booster. How do you fix your metabolism if it's broken, if it's crashed? If you're burning less and less and less and less energy and you're eating less and less and less, you still can't lose weight. So in order to lose weight, you ultimately have to expend more energy than you put in, and that's what metabolism is all about. Today we're going to explain exactly why it breaks in the first place and what to do about it. Coming right up. Hey, I'm Dr. Ekberg. I'm a holistic doctor and a former Olympic decathlete. And if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss anything. So a healthy metabolism is really the key to weight loss. But in order to understand how to fix it, we first have to understand the exact mechanics of why it broke. Why did you crash your metabolism? Because otherwise we'll be likely to repeat the mistakes and then we'll just do it over and over again. And that's what a lot of people have done, and that's part of the problem. So first of all, what is metabolism? Well, meta means change. It's when your body is changing. So you can eat food and you can change that food into tissue. It's a turnover. And whatever you eat, you can turn it into energy or you can turn it into tissue. You can store tissue as fat and then you can retrieve that as energy. So it's the exchange of tissue and energy, of substrate turning into energy and tissue. And the better that your body can use stored resources, the better you'll be able to have a healthy metabolism. And then we want to ask ourselves, why did the metabolism crash in the first place? And this is where we want to start taking a different viewpoint of the body. We want to understand, we want to ask, did it crash because the body is just randomly stupid? Well, sometimes the body just does crazy things. Or is the body always intelligent? If it lowers the metabolism, does it have a good reason for doing that? So we can't get the right answers until we ask the right question and we have an intelligent viewpoint to get the answers. So the answer here is that the body is always intelligent. There is always a reason that the body does what it does. In our symptom treatment sick care system, in our allopathic model, they do lots of good. They save lives when there is broken bones and bleeding. But in terms of understanding the body, in terms of understanding that the body is always intelligent, they have failed miserably because they think the body is randomly flawed and that we need to treat symptoms with medication. We need to interfere with the symptoms. And that's a flawed model. You can never heal. You can never get true improvement from that model. So first of all, the body is intelligent, and therefore if it lowers metabolism, it has a really good reason for doing that. And that reason is survival. It always wants to survive. And it wants to make sure that it has enough energy to survive tomorrow. So whenever there is lack, then your body will conserve resources. Whenever there is abundance, then your body is willing to spend more resources to make more energy. And we have to understand that that is the ultimate reason that the body does what it does. It's for survival. If we have plenty of fuel or if we have not so much fuel, it's going to change what the body does. And the result of this principle is that the body has a set point. Think of it as a rubber band. If your body believes that your set point is 120 and you try to raise it, you try to gain weight, the body is going to burn more energy to bring you back to the set point. If you weigh 120 and you try to lose weight, it's going to start saving energy. It's going to lower your metabolism to bring you back to the set point. It has an idea of what is right for you, and if you try to deviate from that point, then it's going to try to bring you back by spending more or spending less. All right? And here's the thing though, it doesn't matter if you're skinny or fat. It doesn't matter if you're thin or huge. It's about your body's perception. If you're at 300 and your body thinks, if you're at 300 pounds and your body thinks that is the correct weight for you, that is what it's gotten used to, then it's going to do everything in its power to return you to that weight. So if you weigh 300 pounds and you try to lose weight, it's going to try to bring you back, right? That's why it's so hard to lose weight or gain weight, because the body has an idea of where it needs to be. And now you may say that, oh, well, that doesn't sound so intelligent. That sounds rather on the stupid side. Well, it's still intelligent, and we have to, once we understand that, then we can ask ourselves, what did we do to make the body believe that it needs to be at that set point? What gave the body that perception? Because if we're open to ask those questions, then we can get correct answers. We can get useful answers. So really the goal is not to lose weight or gain weight, it's to change the set point. It's to change the perception of the body. And if we think about metabolism now from a different viewpoint, from a different perspective, if we want to increase the body's metabolism, if we want to increase the energy production, the burning of fat, then we have to increase the body's willingness to spend. All right, that's what it is. Metabolism is a willingness to spend, and if it's not willing to spend, it's because we did something to make it believe that it is unsafe to spend energy. So now that we're open to ask intelligent questions, then the next question is, what crashed the metabolism? What lowered it? What made the body believe this set point that we don't agree with? Well, number one is dieting. Dieting is quite unnatural, right? Eating less than your body wants is unnatural, and it's going to start stretching this rubber band. You're moving away from the set point. You're trying to lose weight, and the body is going to try to bring it back. So dieting, and especially repeated yo-yo dieting. Every time that you dieted, you lost a little weight, then you stopped dieting and you gained it back and then some. And you lost a little bit, you gained it back and then some. And I don't have to tell you how many people have gone through this, because that's why we have the problems that we do. That's why so many people are overweight, because the more you diet, the more you teach your body that there's a lack of food. You're not addressing the true underlying causes. The second thing is too much carbs, too much sugar, things that change blood sugar quickly, along with frequent meals. So if you eat something that raises blood sugar, now your blood sugar goes up really fast, your insulin goes up, the blood sugar crashes, and you get a blood sugar roller coaster. And every time that you're on the low side, you give your body a sense of lack. You teach your body that there is no stability in the fuel supply. And because it's so unstable and so unreliable, I'd better store some. I better make sure that I have some extra, some saved up. Another thing that happens when you eat frequent meals and you eat a lot of carbohydrates is that you teach your body to become carbohydrate dependent. Carbohydrates are difficult to store, but they're also dangerous in terms of blood sugar. It's very unsafe. It's an emergency. Whenever your blood sugar goes really high or really low, the body has mechanisms in place to bring it back into a more narrow range, because the narrow range is safe. The really high and really low are unsafe. That's why the body has to burn carbohydrates first. And if you put in a lot of carbohydrates and your body has to burn them first, then it's going to forget how to burn fat. So now you become carb dependent. You change your whole metabolism to carbohydrates, and now you can't burn fat. Then this whole thing is made worse by the fact that every time that you eat something, and especially high carb, your insulin goes up. Every time your insulin goes up, you give your body a message to store the excess, and over time, as you stuff your cells full, they eventually had enough, and now they become resistant to the action of insulin. So you become insulin resistant. The more foods you eat that raise blood sugar and the more frequently you eat, the quicker you become insulin resistant. And once you are insulin resistant, now you've got the double whammy of not being able to burn fat. So first of all, you're carbohydrate dependent, but now because you're insulin resistant, that insulin is a storage hormone. As long as insulin is high, you cannot burn fat, because with insulin high, the message, the direction in your body is that you're in storage mode. You're not going to retrieve and store at the same time. You're going to burn off the carbs, but then while insulin is still high, you can't get the stored energy back. And what this does now, in effect, is it changes the set point. Because you're in a place where you can't burn fat, because insulin is high and it constantly stores more fat, insulin and insulin resistance is the strongest factor in raising the set point. And why is that? Because your set point is a result of the perception of lack. And when you have the perception that there is no fuel, you're going to try to raise the set point. So here you are weighing 300 pounds, you have 500,000 calories, you have a veritable fortune of energy stored on the body, but the perception is that there is no fuel. The body can't see the fuel, it's blind to all that energy in the presence of insulin. So what's happened here is that you have taught your body that food is scarce. Even though you have all that energy stored on your body, through the yo-yo dieting, you repeatedly taught your body that food is scarce, there's a lack of food, you ate a bunch of carbs, you had unstable blood sugar, you became insulin resistant, so the body is blind to all the energy reserves you have. So now you have a very high set point, but you have the perception that in the midst of a fortune, you have no fuel. And the further that goes, the more your body is going to try to preserve fuel. It says, I don't have any, I'd better preserve it, I better save it. So your metabolism goes lower and lower and lower. So you go from eating 2,000 calories to 1,800 to 1,500 to 1,200 to 1,000. And eventually you weigh 300 pounds, you eat 1,000 calories, and you still can't lose any weight. Because your body has a set point, it wants to get back to that. So now let's talk about how to fix it. So we got 10 steps, 10 things that you can do, and I've listed these in reverse order of importance. So we start with the least important and end with the most important. And now that you understand the basic mechanics, if you stick with me through all these 10 steps, we're going to finish up with a bonus that you're really going to enjoy. The first thing you can do is to take some apple cider vinegar, right? I've done some videos on that in the past. It won't do much by itself, but if you start doing many of these steps, if you start moving toward more insulin sensitivity, then apple cider vinegar is a great tool to add to that effect. Number 2, fermented food. Things like sauerkraut and tofu and pickled vegetables and things like that. Anytime you ferment something, you're making more vinegar, so you're adding a little bit of the acidic benefit, but more than that, the fermentation process, the bacteria uses the sugar in the food. So if something has this much carbohydrate to start with, then the bacteria in the process of fermenting, they're going to consume some of that sugar. So now there's less carbohydrate left in the food. So sauerkraut has less sugar than cabbage. And then in addition to that, you get the benefits from the acid and the probiotics in the food. Number 3, eat foods with lots of fiber. Why is that? Because fiber slows down the absorption of nutrients. So just like fat and protein are absorbed slower if you eat carbohydrate foods with fiber, especially leafy greens that have very little carbohydrate to start with, then the sugars in those foods are absorbed very, very slowly, and it helps you maintain a stable blood sugar. It minimizes the blood sugar fluctuations. Another benefit is that both fiber and fermented food can improve your gut flora, and a healthy gut flora can have a positive impact on your metabolism. Number 4, eat more fat. You want to cut back on sugar and carbs, but you don't want to give your body the sense of starvation. You want to give your body the sense that there's plenty of energy-rich foods around. So you cut back on sugar and carbs, but you eat until you're satisfied when you eat, and you fill up the difference with fat. Fat helps stabilize the blood sugar because it has a virtually zero impact on insulin, and it creates a long-term stability for your blood sugar. Number 5, make sure you get enough sleep. Lack of sleep is a form of stress that can really start unbalancing your hormones and make it harder to improve your metabolism and lose some weight. Number 6, exercise. Exercise is fantastic, not necessarily to raise your metabolism, but it does a million different things that are beneficial for your body in terms of circulation. It does use up some excess energy, and it helps balance your hormones as well. Now, the key is that you keep it slow. Okay? It needs to be aerobic exercise. Don't fall into the trap that burning calories is the purpose of exercise, and that exercising harder, doing aerobics or spin classes and getting your heart rate up and huffing and puffing, that would be good for your metabolism. It is not. It is one of the worst things that you can do, because when you exercise at a high intensity and you huff and puff, now you make cortisol, which is the stress hormone that raises blood sugar and drives insulin. So high intensity exercise is a stress that will interfere with the recovery from insulin resistance. So there's a balance, we've talked about in some other videos, between aerobics and HIIT. You want to do just a tiny bit of high intensity exercise, but you want to do the majority of your exercise as aerobic if you're trying to reduce insulin resistance. If you're trying to break the world record in something, that's a different story. But if your goal with exercise is to reverse insulin resistance, you want to minimize stress and keep almost all of it at a low intensity aerobic level. Number 7, stress, cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. People who get corticosteroids, they become insulin resistant, they gain weight, they get bloated because cortisol raises blood sugar and stimulates insulin. It makes you insulin resistant, and you can inject it like they do with people who have inflammation, and they try to help them with that, which isn't a good idea. But emotional stress, physical stress in your life will also raise cortisol. And for some people, it's a tiny little bit of impact, and for other people, it makes all the difference. For some people, they've tried everything, but when they start meditating or breathing exercises or some organized form of relaxing and their cortisol goes down, their stress levels go down, all of a sudden their insulin resistant releases. So everyone's different. That's why you want to learn as much as possible about a lot of different things, because it's never going to be a single quick fix for anything. So to reduce cortisol, you want to learn to relax through meditation and yoga and breathing exercises and whatever else that you like that helps you to relax. Number 8, carbohydrates. If you have a lot of these issues, if you've done the yo-yo dieting, if you have insulin resistance, you probably will not be able to change your metabolism unless you cut the carbs, right? Everyone is different. Some people can do various different things, but now we're getting to the really critical areas that you cannot burn fat in the presence of insulin. And your metabolism can't go up to burn that fat in the presence of insulin. And carbs drive insulin. Now, if you become very insulin resistant, if you have a stubborn body, then this is going to be more important for you than someone who has never really been very, very stuck, right? So it's different for different people. Some people can cut carbs down to 100 grams and that's low carb and that gets the result. Other people are going to have to get down to the ketogenic level where they eat 5 or 10 or 15, 20 grams of net carbs per day. Number 9, reduce the frequency of meals. Because every time that you eat, if you eat carbs, it's worse, but every time you eat, you're stimulating a little bit of insulin. You're stimulating a message to store food. And if you want to reduce insulin resistance, then you want to reduce the carbs and then the frequency of the meals. So a lot of people are eating 3 meals a day plus snacks. So 6 times a day they're telling their body, they're triggering insulin, and they're hiding the fat stores from their body. They can't raise metabolism and use those fat stores when they tell their body 6 times a day that it's time to store more. Number 10, the most powerful thing you can do is fasting. Now, this is kind of a two-edged sword, but for some people it's necessary. So when you're fasting, your body is perceiving lack, all right? But for some people, it's the only way that you're going to teach your body to burn fat. For some people, you can go ketogenic, you can do 1 meal a day, you can do 36 hours maybe even, and their bodies are still so stubborn, it's refusing to burn that fat. So it depends on the person, but if your body is really stubborn and refuses to burn that fat, then longer fasts are the way to go. And even though short term you're putting your body into a sense of lack, a perception of lack, you're teaching it to burn fat again. And that is the key. You can't get back into balance unless your body learns how to burn all that fat that you have stored on your body. And for some people, if they eat keto, they increase the fat and they decrease the carbs. The body still can't see the fat on the body. But with a longer fast, it has no choice. It's got to go find that fat. Thanks for staying with me all the way through. Now you understand the principles of set point and perception and all that good stuff. You understand the 10 steps that we can do. Now, in the bonus, I want to talk about The Biggest Loser. That was a show that went for many, many years where people lost dramatic amounts of weight. They went from 400 pounds to 180 pounds sometimes in a 6 to 9 month period. And they ate very low fat, they ate low calories, and they exercised at a very high intensity. So a lot of people say, well, look at Biggest Loser. They lost all that weight. That must be the way to go. That's a success story. But what they don't know a lot of times is that the contestants at The Biggest Loser, all but one, as far as a research paper that was published, all but one gained all the weight back. And why did that happen? Because they didn't change the set point. They didn't change the underlying mechanism. Even though they forced the body into a state of reduced insulin resistance because they worked the body so hard, the body had to burn off the fat stores. They also crashed the metabolism completely. They changed this, they didn't change the set point. So the people who weighed 300 pounds, it's like a rubber band. They just stretched it longer and harder than ever before. So these people, they would eat a low-calorie diet, they would exercise enough to get a 3, 4, 5,000 calorie deficit per day. So the body was in a state of shock, the body was in a state of emergency, they had an extreme lack of food, they were pushing the body with cortisol, but in that extreme circumstance with a 3, 4, 5,000 calorie deficit, the body will lose weight, but it's also going to try harder than ever to get back to the set point. And that's exactly what happened. These people, when they went from maybe a normal diet of 2,000 calories, now their metabolism went down to maybe 1,200. And they would eat 1,200 calories and not be able to lose weight. They would even gain weight back at that level because the body would do anything to get back to the set point. So the key is that you gotta follow these rules. You can't do it with stress, you can't do it with cortisol, and you have to reduce the insulin resistance and the set point. You have to put the body in a place where it's willing, where it has the perception that it's safe to spend the energy. If you enjoyed this video, make sure that you check out that one. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.